may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
All right, guys. I just want to give y'all a massive thank you for the support that y'all showed on the running back version of this video. And I say it all the time. The easiest way for y'all to tell me what videos you want me to make is by you going down there and you dropping a like. I know we get a ton of requests on Patreon for what videos y'all want to see, and that's where the majority of them come from. So y'all told me y'all wanted to see dead running backs, and then on YouTube, y'all dropped over 100 likes in a day on that video. So we're going to have to come out here and do the same thing with wide receivers. And I will say also that, guys, I know these players don't have a ton of value in Dynasty Fantasy Football. It's not always the best thing to do in Dynasty just to talk about the top guys. I mean, we can all sit here, we can talk about Cam Akers, DeAndre Swift, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and those guys at the very beginning of Dynasty startups for the entire offseason. But no, sometimes it's more impactful if we go through and if we just talk about these guys that are at the very end of our rosters going, you know what? Some players may still have some name appeal. Some players may be carrying value just because of their name and nothing else beyond that. And if we can get any type of value for them, we should be doing so. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do in this video. I'm going to attempt to identify 3 or 4 wide receivers that I think we need to be selling for pretty much anything that we can get before their value hits 0. And for some overall strategy before we go into the players themselves, I want to say when you are trading one of these guys away, yeah, I know they're not going to have a lot of value. I understand. But how you work a trade where you can maximize, I know that's not a word. I know y'all always tell me that it's not, but we're going to use it anyway. So y'all can maximize y'all's value on your roster with these players is if you're constructing a separate trade, maybe you're trying to trade for a player like Cam Akers, someone that's exciting that we can actually talk about. And you're like, hey man, I'll give you 2 first-round picks for Cam Akers. And he goes, no, can you give me 2 first-round picks and a second? You can fire back and go, nope, I'll give you 2 first-round picks and I'll throw in T.Y. Hilton, someone that we perceive to be going to 0, someone we perceive to have no value at all, but possibly you're a league mate. They go, oh, okay, I'm getting another player. I'm getting someone that has some value. Maybe I can flip T.Y. Hilton for that second-round pick that I'm asking for regardless. We know for certain that he's not worth that. We know that we are just looking to offload him off our roster, but that's not important. What's important is you get the most value for these players that you can, and you're not going to be doing that by just offering these players straight up for rookie picks. You're going to have to include them in packages. You're just going to have to use their name to attach to some other players to try to squeeze out a little bit more value, because that's how you win trades. That's how you win dynasty leagues. So let's talk about players that we should be doing this right now. Let's talk about players that I really don't like their long-term outlook. And our first guy is going to be T.Y. Hilton. We already brought him up. And I'll go with Hilton. Man, I want to give you a massive congrats for a fantastic NFL career. Especially I want to give everyone a congratulations that drafted T.Y. Hilton in their dynasty rookie drafts if they were able to hold on to him throughout his entire NFL career, because he had a great one. If we look at 60 reception seasons for T.Y. Hilton, he had a ton going back to 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2018. T.Y. Hilton was a top wide receiver in fantasy season after season after season. But as of late, T.Y. Hilton hasn't been close to that. And this is why I was sounding the alarms and begging y'all to sell T.Y. Hilton for whatever you could get last offseason. We know that we did a deep dive into his yards per target, into his other efficiency metrics, and going, you know what? T.Y. Hilton isn't the same talent. It's not just because Andrew Luck is out of the situation. T.Y. Hilton is generating less separation. T.Y. Hilton does not have the same level of speed that he did throughout his entire NFL career. So I was screaming for y'all to sell before he hit 0 last offseason. Back then, you probably could have got an early to mid second round pick if you played your cards right. Now you're not going to get that. But like I said, we already discussed how you can try to maximize his value through trade. And the reason I'm coming out here and saying, yeah, he's going to 0 is T.Y. Hilton's 31 years old, which isn't a death sentence for wide receivers. We know Julio Jones is 32. We know generally those wide receivers last a lot longer in the NFL than running backs, but he's not under contract in 2021. So T.Y. Hilton is going to have to find himself a new situation where hopefully he can carve himself out a role. And I just don't think he's going to be able to do that, because if we are going to get excited about a wide receiver to try to progress into a different mold as his NFL career goes on, what we are wanting to see is we are wanting to see a wide receiver that was able to win with his route running, that was able to win with his hands, and not his athleticism. Because if you're a wide receiver that wins off of speed, that speed goes, you have nothing else to do. So yeah, Larry Fitzgerald can still be productive. He can still be a fantasy asset for you years after he turns 31. But with Larry Fitzgerald, that's because he can play the slot. He can generate separation based on his route running alone and does not need the speed to do so. With T.Y. Hilton, it's a completely different situation. T.Y. Hilton has always won off of speed throughout his entire NFL career. And even if we see Hilton come back to the Indianapolis Colts, who just traded for Carson Wentz, I think we are not necessarily going to be expecting Hilton to even be an every down player for this Colts team. They have Paris Campbell, who they drafted back in 2019, who in my opinion was the clear replacement for T.Y. Hilton as that speedy guy that was going to be able to kind of move himself throughout the entire field. And then they also drafted Michael Pittman Jr. in the second round in 2020, who looked great whenever he had opportunity in his rookie year. We know Pittman is most likely going to be that alpha X wide receiver. Campbell is going to be the field stretching option. And then this team still has options. They can go into free agency trying to get someone. We know that there are fantastic wide receivers that are going to be available on the free agent market. And we know that this wide receiver draft class is not only great at the very top, but it's deep too. So I think the Indianapolis Colts are most likely going to be looking to go out there, and they're going to be looking to address they're going to be looking to fill the hole T.Y. Hilton is leaving on their roster, either through free agency or through the draft, not necessarily by signing T.Y. Hilton on his own. So yeah, before people kind of realize that Hilton is going to zero, before people realize that this is kind of a dead roster spot on your team, I would love to go out there and see if I can get anything for him, even if that means just throwing him in a deal to just get the deal done. I'm completely fine putting T.Y. Hilton in that range at this point, even though, during his peak, he was a fantastic, consistent wide receiver. All right, so now let's go down to our next wide receiver. Someone also who during his peak was just absurd with how dominant he was. But A.J. Green. I know it's so sad to bring up A.J. Green, but A.J. Green is going to be 33 years old whenever he starts this next season, and very similar to T.Y. Hilton. A.J. Green played under the franchise tag this past year, so he is not under contract for 2021. He is playing for the Cincinnati Bengals, who decided to draft T. Higgins with the first pick in the second round last offseason, and T. Higgins looked dominant whenever he got the opportunity with Joe Burrow. And then they have Tyler Boyd. John Ross, most likely not going to be back, but still. T.Y. Hilton was drafted to be the direct replacement for A.J. Green in Cincinnati. And I'll say with Green, I know a lot of people are going to want to come out here and say, Mason, you just talked about if wide receivers can win on route running alone, they may be able to kind of progress as their NFL career goes on to turn into that Larry Fitzgerald type player. And I'll say, yeah, I'm completely fine saying that A.J. Green kind of fits that mold that I just talked about. But what kind of scares me away from it is the fact that A.J. Green, based on his efficiency, was possibly the worst wide receiver in the entire NFL last year. I think the injuries have just completely diminished A.J. Green to the point where I would rather have players like Devin Duvernay over A.J. Green. If we are looking at Green, he was able to accrue over 100 targets in 2020, something you rarely ever see from a wide receiver that we are going to be calling dead the next season. But with over 100 targets, he was not able to hit 50 receptions. His yards per target were laughable. He was at about 5 yards per target. And if we just compare this to other players in the NFL, we can pull up a tight end in Darren Waller, where, Darren Waller is an elite tight end in terms of his yards per target, but still, he's over 3 more yards per target than A.J. Green. So A.J. Green, if you look at his efficiency, one of the worst wide receivers in the league last season. He has been plagued by injuries over the past few years, and he has no stable situation coming into the next season. So with this great draft class coming in, with a great free agency class, I mean, what are y'all expecting from A.J. Green? Personally, I'm not expecting anything. I'm expecting Green possibly to get signed somewhere just to be a mentor for some younger wide receivers. We know that A.J. Green is known for his work ethic, and I think an NFL franchise is definitely going to bring him in just so they can go, you know what, guys? You know what? Maybe the Indianapolis Colts bring him in so they can show him, hey, Michael Pittman, this is what it takes to be a generational talent. Look at A.J. Green's work ethic. I know he's not athletic anymore. I know that you are a better wide receiver than him now, but this is what it took him to be able to get to that top tier. And A.J. Green can kind of go through, just play that mentor role, kind of like Draymond Green and the Warriors right now. But with Green himself, I don't think he's going to find his way onto a football field in 2021. And if he was able to kind of transform his career into being that next Larry Fitzgerald, I would be extremely surprised. All right, so now our last wide receiver that we are going to talk about is worth a little bit more than these guys. Actually, a considerable amount more than these guys. This is going to be Jarvis Landry. And Jarvis Landry, I know some people are excited going, you know what? Odell Beckham Jr. may not be in Cleveland next year. But what I am saying is, I'm saying if you're looking at the cap situation for the Cleveland Browns, if you're looking at the contract for Jarvis Landry, I don't expect Jarvis Landry to be in Cleveland next season. And if we are looking at Jarvis, I know that he has been a stat monster throughout his entire NFL career. But what we have to understand is that those wide receivers that profile to be the Jarvis Landry, that have an extremely low average depth of target, are not worth much to an NFL franchise. I mean, just take a step back and remember that when we had A.J. Green and Kenny Stills, I'm sorry, not A.J. Green, Jarvis Landry and Kenny Stills, both on the Miami Dolphins, who did the Dolphins decide to pay? They decided to give Kenny Stills the larger contract out of the two, coming off of Jarvis Landry's 100 reception seasons, and then they decided to proceed to trade Jarvis Landry for a 4th round pick from the Cleveland Browns. That 4th round pick, maybe my memory's a little bit hazy, but that's what I am remembering. And that just tells us that if you're going to be a wide receiver that's just kind of running crossing routes, you're not going to hold a ton of value to an NFL franchise. So if you are looking at Jarvis Landry's cap number in 2021, it sucks to say, but I think that this is a wide receiver that is most likely going to be cut by the Cleveland Browns. And yeah, his value isn't necessarily going to hit zero. Yeah, Jarvis Landry is definitely going to get picked up by another team. But we have to question, what's the target share going to look like? How many teams in the NFL right now are going to add Jarvis Landry and then decide to give him 20% of their team's targets? I think it's very few. If you look at Jarvis Landry's career numbers with his yards per target, with any efficiency number, I mean, it is hilariously low, more so because of the role that he plays. I know in Cleveland it's been a little bit different than what he was in Miami, but still, it's more so the same. So with Jarvis Landry, what I am saying now is I am saying sell ASAP. If you love Jarvis Landry, sell him and then possibly trade for him after he's cut by the Cleveland Browns, because I think that's most likely going to happen this offseason. Even though I know a lot of Landry owners are going to hear this, I'm going to get some nasty comments down in the YouTube section, but I don't really care. I'm just out here trying to help our Dynasty team. So I think if you can, please, I know it's going to be at a loss, but sell Jarvis Landry, get what you can get. If you can get a 2nd round pick in a Superflex league, especially if that's a top half 2nd round pick, that's a price point that I would love to see, just knowing that there are going to be players like Rondale Moore possibly falling to the early 2nd, or Rashad Bateman, whoever you want to say. I mean, there are so many wide receivers in this draft class. You can get a Terrace Marshall. Just any of those guys, I think, would be significantly more exciting than Jarvis Landry. So yeah, if you can sell Jarvis for a 2.01, 2.02, 2.03, 2.04, 2.05, 2.06, y'all get the point. If you can sell him for anything in that range, I would love to do so, because I think his dynasty value is going to plummet after he is cut by the Cleveland Browns. All right, now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I know that maybe it wasn't the most exciting, but still, it's something that we need to make sure that we are talking about. We need to make sure that we are looking at some of these guys that are going to be further down our ranks in Dynasty and trying to decide what to do with them. Because while those decisions on their own right may not necessarily win you a league, when you start adding them up together and accruing small pieces of value, that is how you can take your Dynasty team to the next level. Now, thank you guys. Really hope you all enjoyed the video. As always, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and I will see y'all with the video tomorrow.